Hello, my name is Bethany Diaz, and this presentation is going to be about the 2020 census and what you should know how to fill it out. So the census is a head count of every living person residing in the United States. It happens every 10 years, mandated by the US Constitution. It was established in 1790. So this has been going on every 10 years for 230 years now. The census is used to gather population data. So what that means is counting everybody who lives here. And that population data from the census tells the government where they should distribute their federal funds for the next 10 years, for example, to social services. It also determines the number of seats in the House of Representatives that each district gets. So Congress is divided into the Senate and the House of Representatives, and there are 435 representatives that are divided up among the states proportional to that state's population. So this is the faction of government that is truly dependent on how many people reside in each area. It's super important then that people fill out the census so that they get their fair representation in the House of Representatives. Census data, the population data from the census impacts so many services and programs within this country. The population data from the census informs the government which programs and services to fund. So for instance, Medicaid, Medicare, CHIP are all funded by the government, as well as federal direct student loans, Pell Grants, which are grants for people going into college, SNAP, WIC, temporary assistance for needy families, roads, public transit, Section 8 housing, unemployment insurance. All of these things are affected by the census data because the data tells the government where they should spend their money. In addition to these programs, all of these are also impacted by census data. So there's so many things that are provided by the government that are impacted by our census data, such as childcare, hospitals, the school lunch program, Head Start, Native American services, small business loans and grants, programs for disabled veterans and for women's shelters, for community development, for special education, emergency services. All of these things are indirectly affected by the census data. And so what do they ask for on the census? This is what the census questionnaire looks like. You likely received a copy of this in the mail. And they ask for the number of people living in the household with their names, age and date of birth, sex, race and ethnicity, as well as relation to the head of household. So person 1 on the questionnaire is the head of household, and then person 2 would be, for instance, their child, their spouse, their grandparent, etc. Whether the residents also live elsewhere, such as in a group facility or another residence, whether you rent or own, and your phone number. They ask for the phone number so that they can follow up if anything on your questionnaire is unclear. And so this is a lot of personal info, right? And folks might have reservations about giving the government their personal information. So how can we be sure that our info is safe? So the government is actually bound by law to protect your information. Title 13 of the US Code requires the Census Bureau to keep your information confidential, meaning they cannot share your information with any other person, and every employee takes an oath to protect your personal information for life. The Census Bureau cannot share your information with any government agency, so that means that the law is ensuring that your private data is protected, and your answers cannot be used against you by any government agency or by court. So that basically means that government agencies such as the FBI, the IRS, any investigative agencies, they cannot access your data. Also, violating Title 13, which is that law that keeps your info safe, that's a federal crime, meaning that it's punishable by prison time or a fine of up to $250,000. So census takers and the people who process your data in the Census Bureau are incentivized to not share your data because of those possible repercussions. So now that we learned what the census is and what it's for, how they keep our info safe, how do we fill it out? So you likely received a paper questionnaire delivered to your home in the mail. You can also fill it out by phone at 844-330-2020. That is the English line. If you speak Spanish, you would call this number. If you speak Haitian Creole, call this one. And for the first time in 2020, you can actually fill out the census online. This may be the easiest way to fill it out if you have access to a device and internet connection. There is language support on the census. So if you speak any of the following languages: Spanish, Simplified Chinese, Korean, Arabic, Polish, Haitian Creole, Japanese, Portuguese, French, Tagalog, Russian, or Vietnamese, you can respond to the census online or over the phone in your language. If you speak any of these languages in the outer circle, there are guides available in your language that go question by question to help you fill out the English version of the census. So you can respond online or over the phone in 13 languages, and there are guides in 59 additional languages, including American Sign Language and Braille. If you don't have access to a phone line or to internet connection and a device, then you may not be able to fill out the census on your own, in which case you'd have to wait for the census taker to come to your home. Those people are called enumerators. So an enumerator is the federal employee who visits your home and interviews you. You may know that as a census taker or a door knocker. This person has a valid ID with their photograph, a U.S. Department of Commerce watermark, and an expiration date so that you can ask the person to show you their ID and you can verify that they're official. They will only ask you questions that are on the census. An official U.S. Census worker will have not only their ID, but also some of the items on the left in this photo, such as the card saying official business, some census merchandise, and that laptop. Keep in mind that a census taker cannot share your personal info or else they risk jail time and large fines. So there really is no need to be wary of an official census enumerator. And an important thing to consider about the enumerators is that they are people from your community who were hired specifically because they're from your area. Many enumerators are bilingual and can speak the languages spoken in your area. So although it's not a guarantee, it is likely that you will be able to communicate with the enumerator who visits your home. So let's consider who we should count on the census. All residents of the United States, documented or otherwise, are counted on the census. If you are an undocumented resident, you still count, all right? They do not ask about citizenship or immigration status, which we'll get to later in the presentation. It's also super important to make sure that all children under 5, including babies, are counted on the census. That would be anyone who was born on or before April 1st of this year. Historically, babies have been undercounted and therefore underrepresented on the census. People have often left babies off of their questionnaire, but it's super important that they're counted because so many of the programs for children and babies are impacted by that census data, such as childcare, the National School Lunch Program, CHIP. So we have to give the government an accurate count of the children in our communities so that there is enough money for those programs so that all our kids can access them. It's also important that everyone in a multi-generational or a multi-family household is counted. So regardless of if you have separate incomes or you don't file taxes together or each family supports themselves, if you live together, you should be counted together. So all people in a multi-generational or multi-family household should be counted together for the same address. And finally, if you live in military-based housing, you should have received a census questionnaire in the mail, and you can fill that out on your own and include all members of your family. If you or a family member is an active duty service member who lives in barracks as opposed to a housing unit on a military base, they get counted as part of that communal housing, which we'll get to in a few slides. So perhaps the most important thing to consider when figuring out who to count is that you should count yourself where you live and sleep most of the time. So now that we know who does get counted, who should we not count? So babies who were born after April 1st of 2020 should not be counted on the census. This is because April 1st is Census Day, And because of COVID-19, all census operations have been extended, giving you some more time to respond. However, the original date for whether or not someone should be included remains April 1st, the original census day. So babies who were born on April 1st, yes, they can be counted. Born after April 1st, so April 2nd and up to the present, no, you should not count them. And individuals who died on or before April 1st should not be counted. I'm sorry, who died before April 1st should not be counted. If they died on April 1st, they can be counted. Finally, if you have family or friends who are staying with you while they visit the United States, they're temporary guests, meaning they are visiting you while on vacation, or they have business here and they're just staying with you, they should not be counted either. And so what about those communal living situations that I mentioned before? People who live in group facilities get counted as part of that facility. So if you have a family member who lives in a college dorm or a psychiatric hospital for non-acute care, a nursing home, hospice care, residential treatment centers, group homes, emergency shelters, military barracks or military vessels, lives in a jail or a prison, or workers' quarters, or a convent, monastery, or an abbey, that person will be counted as part of that facility by the administration for the facility. So do not count them on the census for your household. And there are some instances where you would count yourself wherever you were living on April 1st. So for instance, if you don't have a permanent address, meaning you're staying with friends and you do not have a permanent address at this time, you should count yourself wherever you were on April 1st. If your home was destroyed by a natural disaster and you're staying elsewhere at this time, please count yourself wherever you were on April 1st. If you moved into a new home, count yourself at the new place for April 1st. And if you spend equal amounts of time at multiple residences, please count yourself wherever you were staying on April 1st of this year. This also goes for children in shared custody agreements. So if the child spends the same amount of time between both parents, they should be counted on the census questionnaire by the parent who had them on April 1st. If someone such as a college student is just living with you temporarily due to COVID-19, they should be counted where they normally would have been on April 1st. So if your college student had to leave their dorm and come back home, but they normally would have been in their dorm on April 1st, they should be counted wherever they would have been on April 1st. And so people who don't have traditional or stationary housing are still counted on the census. From September 22nd to the 24th, people experiencing homelessness will be counted through what's known as service-based enumeration at places where they may receive services. So what that means is the census takers are going to go to places that serve people experiencing homelessness and interview them and ask them to fill out the census. This will be at places such as shelters with sleeping facilities, soup kitchens, regularly scheduled food truck stops, and outdoor locations that are not sheltered, such as tent encampments. People experiencing homelessness can also go to a public library and complete a census questionnaire online by providing a description of the location where they were sleeping on April 1st of this year. From September 3rd to the 28th, people who live in mobile homes or places where they're unlikely to live year-round will be counted through enumeration at transitory locations. So again, the census taker will go to you, and those transitory locations include RV parks, campgrounds, marinas, hotels, motels, circuses, carnivals, and traveling shows. Remember that everyone living in the United States counts regardless of how or where they live. And so now let's talk about some of those misconceptions and myths. I mentioned before about citizenship status. The Trump administration tried to get a citizenship question put on the census, but the Supreme Court shot that down. So the census does not ask you for citizenship or immigration status. It does not ask you either for political party affiliation, for your religion, for your bank account information, or your social security number. The Census Bureau also cannot share your information with other government agencies, with law enforcement, or with your landlord. So if you're worried that your landlord could find out that you have more people living in your rental than is allowed, keep in mind that your landlord cannot access your census information. That is against the law. Your response also is not tied to your stimulus payments or government benefits. We heard a concern that somebody thought that if they didn't respond to the census, they wouldn't get their stimulus check or their monthly benefits, but that's simply not true. Okay, your census response has nothing to do with your government benefits or your stimulus payments. So you might be wondering, why should I bother to fill out the census if it's not tied to any of those benefits that I need, right? So for one, you could avoid having an enumerator come to your home if you fill out the census on your own. In these times of social distancing, it can be nerve-wracking and even dangerous for some folks to open the door to strangers, right? And even though census enumerators are expected to follow protocols for social distancing, some folks might be uncomfortable with having a stranger at their door, right? And so filling out the census on your own can help you avoid having an enumerator come to your home. Also, filling out the census is a civic duty, just like voting. Remember that the census is mandated by the Constitution, and it's all about determining fair representation, which can also be said about voting. Finally, your response to the census can help create more equity for marginalized populations and historically underserved communities. In these times, it's so important that everybody's voice is heard and that everybody is counted by those folks in charge. The census only comes around every 10 years, so this is our chance to say to the government, hey, we're here, give us what we need. Thank you for watching, everybody. My name is Bethany Diaz. I am a Census Outreach Liaison with the Irvington Family Development Center. This is my email address, so if you have any questions at all about the census, please contact me at this email address. You can also contact the Irvington Family Development Center at 973-372-4353. You can email us, find us online at partnershipmch.org, or you could join our Facebook group, which is IFDC Family Success Center. The IFDC's census program is funded by the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey and the Fund for New Jersey. And please fill out your census today. Go to 2020census.gov to get information and to fill out your census. If you'd like more information about the census, such as how to get involved in census promotion efforts, or you just need some more info, you can also find some helpful stuff at the Advocates for Children of New Jersey website, as well as the website for the New Jersey Department of State. Please fill out the census by going to this website, or you can call one of these phone numbers. Thank you so much. Have a great day.